You don't deserve that. The sharp crack of polished leather against cobblestone silenced the sleepy hum of Oakhaven's afternoon. Officer Dale Harding's boot crushed the elegant ebony cane at Ms. Eleanor Ainsworth's feet, the wood splintering with a clean, merciless snap. Eleanor sat still on the old bench beneath the oak tree, her silver hair glinting in the sun. Her dark glasses rested slightly crooked across her face, the tremble in her hand betraying what her calm voice did not. I was simply crossing Elm Street. Harding scoffed. This isn't a playground. Wandering around blind like that? You're a hazard. He reached down, lifted the remaining portion of her cane, and turned it over with a sneer. What is this antique garbage? What makes you think you're entitled to slow everyone down? A couple across the street paused. A teenager discreetly held up her phone, recording. I have the right to walk, Eleanor said gently. This cane guided me for years. It belonged to my husband. Harding's eyes flicked to the silver band near the handle. AR was etched in a steady, practiced script. He didn't hesitate. Another sharp twist. The cane snapped again, half clattered to the cobblestones. The other remained in Eleanor's hand, in cries. No protest, just silence. The kind that clung to the skin and whispered that something sacred had just been broken, and not just the wood. You want freedom? Harding muttered near her ear. Get someone to walk you. Blindness doesn't excuse disorder. And he walked off, leaving behind the broken cane, the shattered stillness, and a crowd that dared not speak. Eleanor's fingers closed around the piece that bore her husband's initials. Her thumb moved slowly over the silver, as if recalling the steady hand that once held hers. Not a single tear fell, but her silence was no surrender. It was memory, and memory could be sharp. That evening, in a high-rise 2 cities away, a man reviewed security footage, his posture still as stone. Agent Alistair Reed wasn't known for anger. He was known for precision. The phone call had been brief. I'm unharmed, son, Eleanor had said. But something happened. Something I cannot allow to fade in silence. Alistair closed the video. Then he opened the case beneath his bed, his barrister's license, his federal badge, and a pristine ebony cane wrapped in velvet. On its silver band, a steadfast guide. The next day, Oakhaven stirred uneasily. People spoke in hushed tones. The street musician didn't set up his stand. The florist left her shutters closed. And Eleanor, who always walked the square at 10, did not come in her kitchen. The sun pouring across the tiled floor, Eleanor tied the 2 broken pieces of cane together with silver thread. She placed them in a linen wrap and tucked them into the drawer that once held Arthur's watch. Meanwhile, Alistair arrived unannounced at the Special Investigations Unit. Start a quiet file, he said. Oakhaven PD, Dale Harding. I want complaints, dismissed reports, camera access. No leaks. By Thursday evening, 5 internal memos and 3 buried complaints had surfaced, spanning 8 years in multiple towns, each involving the same officer. Each closed without consequence Friday morning. 7:03 a.m. Oakhaven's police precinct conference room was unusually full. The chief of police, 2 members of internal affairs, and Officer Harding, still smug, still unaware. The door opened and a man in a tailored charcoal suit entered, carrying a discreet black case. He didn't introduce himself. He simply opened the case. Out came a tablet, a thin file, and, gently placed before them, the 2 fractured pieces of the ebony cane. This was not simply an assault, Alistair said calmly. It was a message, and now I send one of my own. The chief leaned forward. With all due respect, sir, Alistair held up a hand. Respect was lost the moment you let him return to duty without investigation. Harding shifted in his seat. Look, it was just a misunderstanding. She, Alistair interrupted, is a widow, blind, civil. She asked for nothing but dignity. You gave her none. He opened the file. 5 reports. 2 with eyewitness videos. 1 victim hospitalized. Your department buried everyone. You created a silence so deep, even justice got lost in it. The room chilled. Now, Alistair said, his voice lowering, I'm not here for apologies. I'm here for explanations. Outside, Oakhaven went about its morning unaware of what had begun behind those doors. But the silence wouldn't last. Not with Eleanor waiting. Not with the truth rising. And not with the door, still ajar, revealing the beginning of something far larger than Officer Harding could ever imagine. Meanwhile, Eleanor stood at her garden gate, her hand resting lightly on the wrought iron. The gentle breeze stirred the leaves of the ancient oak. Though unseen by human eyes, she sensed his presence. He was here, not for retribution, but to restore the equilibrium of justice that had been so carelessly disrupted. The sterile silence of the Oakhaven Police Precinct's conference room was broken only by the soft click of Alastair's tablet. The screen displayed security footage from the day of the incident. The grainy images showed Harding's arrogant approach, the deliberate crushing of the cane, Eleanor's stunned stillness, and the indifferent departure of the officer. Observe, Alastair stated simply. No threat, no resistance, only the casual destruction of an elderly woman's means of navigation and a cherished memento. He then presented Harding's official report, its carefully constructed narrative starkly contradicting the visual evidence. The room's atmosphere grew heavy with unspoken accusation. Alastair turned his gaze directly to Harding, who sat rigid, a flicker of unease finally replacing his earlier smugness. Officer Harding, Alastair said, his voice devoid of emotion, explain the discrepancy. Harding stammered, attempting to justify his actions, citing vague safety concerns and Eleanor's perceived noncompliance. Alastair calmly presented further evidence. Internal affairs reports from Harding's previous assignments, detailing similar incidents of excessive force and a disturbing pattern of targeting vulnerable individuals. The carefully constructed wall of Harding's authority began to crumble. The meeting concluded without a formal vote. The chief of police, his face pale, immediately suspended Harding. The investigation file was expedited to the state's Special Investigations Unit within the hour. That evening, the local news broadcast no sensationalized reports, just a still photograph of Eleanor Ainsworth, her face turned towards the soft glow of twilight, accompanied by the headline, Justice Sees Clearly, Even Without Sight. 3 days after the hearing, the Oakhaven Community Center hosted an unprecedented town meeting. On the small stage, bathed in the soft glow of the afternoon sun, sat Eleanor Ainsworth, dressed with quiet dignity, a new ebony cane resting beside her chair, engraved with the words, A Path Forward. The room was filled beyond capacity. People stood along the walls, their faces reflecting a shared sense of introspection. Eleanor rose, her hand lightly touching the microphone. I am without sight, she began, her voice steady and clear, but I have never been blind to the truth that resides within each of us. She spoke of past injustices, of the times silence had allowed indifference to flourish. She didn't seek pity. She sought understanding and a collective commitment to vigilance. As she concluded, a profound silence filled the room, followed by a slow, collective standing. It wasn't applause, but a silent acknowledgement, a shared vow. That night, the town council voted unanimously to dedicate a small memorial in the town square, a simple stone bench with a bronze plaque bearing Eleanor's name and a single sentence. Walk with empathy. News of Oakhaven's quiet reckoning spread. Alastair Reed appeared on national television, his message direct. True justice is not merely about punishing the transgressor, but about confronting the silence that allows injustice to take root. Officer Dale Harding was formally dismissed from the Oakhaven Police Department. The state launched a comprehensive review of police conduct and training that on Eleanor Ainsworth's 75th birthday. A small gathering convened in the town square. No grand speeches, just neighbors, friends, and strangers standing in quiet solidarity beside the newly unveiled memorial bench. Alastair stood at the edge of the crowd, a sense of quiet satisfaction in his gaze. Beside him stood a young boy, clutching a drawing of a sturdy ebony cane. The boy looked up at Alastair and asked, "Why is this bench for her?" Alastair knelt down. "It's to remind us," he said gently, "that even when we don't see injustice with our own eyes, We must always have the courage to see it with our hearts. Later that evening, Alistair shared a quiet cup of tea with his mother. Eleanor's hand rested on her new cane. "You didn't need to do this, my dear," she said softly. Alistair smiled. "Perhaps not, mother. But sometimes the quietest acts can speak the loudest truths." And this time the whole town listened.